So these protest laws that the Prime Minister is quite reasonably talking about, that, look, we're not talking about the right of protest, but we're talking about the right, pushing back on the right of people to be able to be like those nutters who were spitting at people walking into the mining event in Melbourne. Well, of course, The Guardian is 24/7 in between conspiracy theories of Sky News and declaring a climate emergency with every click, begging for donations and, you know, seeing if the memes did it for the federal election. Well, they are obsessed with this one. So they've gone off and shopped for an expert and they've found one who thinks it might be unconstitutional to try to stop people being able to spit at people as a way of making a point. It is a constitutional, moral and political minefield in the age where people are more frequently sounding off on social media, encouraging others to put pressure on a business as the primary or secondary target of a boycott. What bullshit. Mark, we all know that free speech is what it is, the right to protest is what it is, but the right to obstruct other people's ability to freely walk into an event, express their free speech, that's where this crosshairs comes in. How do you feel about The Guardian shopping for an expert to say, oh, it can't happen?
Well, you know, we don't need federal government laws. This can all be covered by state government laws that provide a reasonable right of assembly and protect people who want to have meetings peacefully, discuss issues like mining companies have an international conference, and people trying to take away that free right of assembly and free speech should obviously be arrested and locked up. And if you're spitting and punching horses and doing other crazy things, we'll lock them up for a decent period of time. So I'm not surprised the pro-Guardian is pro-spit, and they've got some constitutional flunky to write an opinion. It should all be covered by state law. In terms of secondary boycotts, I think there's an argument that's been overlooked here. The worst, I find most disgusting secondary boycott in recent Australian history is the advertisers, the sponsors, who took away Israel Folau's right to play footy because he quoted from the oldest and most important book, popular book in human history, the Bible, and he's also not allowed to play rugby league football. So these are the powers of faceless corporate sponsors who think they're running the code, and they use secondary boycotts in a way to deny people their legitimate right of labour and payment. I think that's a big problem, and that should be addressed if they're going to be fair income about the problem of secondary boycotts.
But also, I mean, it's this thing too where, all three of you have got direct experience of the type of mobs that we are talking about here, right? Now, we're not talking about people who decide to go and protest for better pay, for better conditions. We're talking about people who go and trash your office, Corey, who go and try to stop, Rita, you being able to go and speak at an event. Or you, Corey, of course, remember when there were events where we couldn't tell anyone where the event was because you had, and then they had to be bussed in, and when they were bussed in, spitting and all the rest of it, you know, with the Milo situation as well. That's what we're identifying here. But what was interesting...
It rained that night with Milo and they didn't turn up because they're allergic to water.
Correct. They thought someone may have a hint of snow.
A big fire hose helps.
Yeah, correct. That's not a bad idea at all. But, Corey, look, I thought the Prime Minister was right to, at the very least, take the moral position on this. Mark's right about where the legislation probably needs to sit. But then we had your mate Albo, who's out there saying, oh, it's all about the right to protest. Like, could he pull on... I mean, how hard can he pull on the left rein before he realises the head of the horse is pointing towards its arse?
Yeah, you made the point before about Christina Keneally being a bug running towards the zapper. I think Albo's running that way too. Because, honestly, people recognise a peaceful protest, being able to have a public assembly to say this is our view on things, is completely reasonable. Unless, of course, you're a lefty and you don't agree with what's going on, then it's unreasonable. But the idea that you can spit on someone or threaten to damage a venue or to impede people from getting into a venue is just abhorrent. And we've had, I think, a very lax position. In Victoria, the police don't want to arrest the lefties too often. You know, maybe it's a political influence or whatever, but we've got to get tough on it, and at least the Prime Minister's prepared to have a crack at it. What the solution is, I don't know.